Hey guys, it's Loaf, back with some more Last Epoch content. This video is going to go over every aspect of my starting build that I chose, which is going to be the Electrify Javadin. I'm going to have leveling, budget, endgame, and aspirational planners, as well as a massive loot filter that is going to level with your character to start you off the season. All of these are going to be in the video description below, so jump down to any of those links that you might need. On top of that, this video is going to be pretty lengthy. It is not meant to be watched in one sitting, but like always, I will have extensive timestamps to allow you to jump to whatever part of the build you need help with. I was pretty torn between my Javadin and shield throw starters that I did theorycraft videos on. I did end up going with the Javadin since I plan on playing in the solo hardcore race for the first Uberoth kill. The Javadin's just a bit quicker to get online and has better early sustain during the campaign due to dot leech just being constant, and it's more likely to get me into the end game where I can kind of build out my character a lot better and fill out some of my defenses. I do plan on picking up any of the idols for the shield throw build to possibly swap through it later if I can get enough of that synergy going. But this way I can play most of the way through the character that I want to play and not have to do a swap much later into the game by playing like hammer throw or something like that. So that's why I did end up doing that. I will still end up doing a full build guide for the shield throw here at some point, just depending on when I make that swap. With all that being said, if you do like my content and you want to see more in-depth build guides, make sure to sub to the channel and come watch me race on the 17th at twitch.tv/pinchingloaf. Let's go ahead and get into the build guide. Alrighty guys, the first thing I want to go over in the build is the new interaction that is going to be available in the next season. Now, this doesn't currently work in the live season, so I can't show you direct gameplay, but I at least want to show you the concept so you can kind of see how the build will play. Overall, this is mostly a one-button build outside of your move ability and occasionally hitting a buff skill here and there. So the new interaction that's going to be taking place is Javelin has a node called Siege Barrage, which changes it from throwing one javelin in front of you that pierces through enemies to throwing up multiple javelins into the air that can then shotgun and hit the same target multiple times. So in the next season, this node's actually going to give you +4 javelins. And then with the extra 2 here, we're going to have 6 javelins with every single cast. Then over here, we have the node Divine Fury. What this would normally do is you would throw your javelin, it would hit a target, and then it would shoot out some little lightning projectiles out to the sides to hit other targets. Now, these two nodes could not work together, so it automatically disabled Divine Fury if you had it allocated, but coming into the next season, it is going to allow them both to work together. What that means is you can throw up 6 javelins into the air. They can all shotgun and hit the same target or a bunch of targets, and then each of those javelins independently will create lightning spears from Divine Fury. I'm going to be using Electrify, which is a damage over time ailment that does lightning damage over time, and using all of these small little hits to apply a whole bunch of ailments and a massive AoE really quickly. To pair with this, we're also going to be auto-casting Smite through our idols, which is also going to create a bunch of smaller little lightning bolts, and it's going to be a really good time, especially with the rework nodes and Paladin. So let's show you what the skill looks like if you've never seen Javelin before. This is going to be with the Siege Barrage nodes. So you can see I'm throwing up a bunch of lightning spears, and then they are all shotgunning down on a target. Now, the interaction that you can't see because it's disabled with the current patch is the small lightning spears that are going to be shooting out from the sides. So these are the things that are going to start getting procced automatically for us coming next season. So I just wanted to quickly go over that, showcase how it works. You're basically just going to be spamming that one button 99% of the time and just obliterating screens, filling it with a bunch of lightning projectiles. Alrighty, guys. The first thing I want to go over in the build is the early leveling. We don't get access to Javelin and Smite right away, so I kind of want to show you what I would recommend doing to get to that point to have the easiest experience possible during those early levels. Before you get a lot of your gear and your skill synergies, I feel like the early game can actually be the hardest, especially if you're going to be participating in the hardcore event. You don't really want to be dying. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. If you want to skip past this and go to any other part of the video, make sure you guys use those timestamps below. Now, to start off, I'm going to be using Hammer Throw. This is one of the strongest abilities in the early game. How it works is you throw a hammer in front of you, it's going to pierce through all the enemies, and then it's going to return back to you to do damage again through all those enemies. So it gives you a nice single target and AoE ability right out the gate. Now, how you're going to level it, every single skill and passive tree on this build guide is going to have sliding bars to show you how to progress, so you don't have to guess which nose to take first. So we're going to start off by taking a travel point into Winged Hammers. We're going to take Steadfast Path. What this will do is make it so Hammer Throw no longer returns to you, but it does give you a chance to deal double damage with your hammer. Now, this is going to sound like a downside and be less damage than it hitting twice, but with our next node, your hammers can't return to you anyways, so we're going to be taking Iron Spiral. What this is going to do is instead of throwing your hammer in a straight line, it is going to put the hammer down in front of you and is going to start spinning in place and slowly going out in a circle in a wider and wider area. Now, the reason why this is so good is instead of with one cast hitting an enemy once, it is then going to hit them like 4, 5, 6 times with one cast. So it's going to tremendously skyrocket your damage output. Now, the downside is it is going to add a 4 mana cost, but we will help take care of that later on. Next up, we are going to take 1 point into Catapult. This is going to add extra hammer projectiles to your spiral throws. It is good to keep in mind, Iron Spiral, it does half the amount of projectiles that you will have. So CD +1, it's going to, or sorry, +2, it's going to give you +1. And then it does add an additional 2 mana cost. For the next 3 points, we're going to be putting them into Ballista. This is going to give us a little bit of more damage multi, as well as help out with that mana cost by minusing an additional 3 mana. The next point, we're going to put again into Catapult to get even more projectiles with every single cast. Basically, what the concept is here is you're going to have a bunch of monsters follow you. You're not going to stop and kill all of them. And then once you have a decent pack behind you, you're just going to toss down a couple of hammers on the ground. They're just going to walk through all the hammers and they're just going to die. So the more hammer projectiles we have, the better. Now, it is going to be a little bit mana heavy at the very start. We're going to put the rest of the nodes into Ballista just to get that -6 mana cost, as well as one of the biggest things to look out for on your early gear is going to be minus throwing mana cost on your rings. My loot filter will highlight these for you in big and bold and flashy colors to make sure that you don't miss them. All you need is a tier 1 mod on both your rings. The tier 1 minus mana cost and the tier 5 minus mana cost are the exact same. So you really only need to get 2 shards. It should be pretty quick to get those, and then that will fix a majority of all the mana problems for the build. Now, this should get you over to level 20, where you can then swap over to playing Javelin and Smite once we get access to that. For our second ability, I am going to be using Shield Rush. Shield Rush is a moon ability where you get to charge through enemies with your shield. So it is going to be important that you have a shield in your offhand for this build. This is one of the best racer abilities. If you want to go zoom through the campaign, this is the way to do it. Since I will be participating in the solo hardcore race, I am going to be using Shield Rush. This is going to allow me just to charge through, past a bunch of mobs. They'll all follow me. Once I get enough behind me, I'll throw down a few hammers and kill them. Now, the leveling progression for this really doesn't matter. The only points that make any difference to me really are Rush Mastery. Those are going to make it cost less mana because it is a little bit hefty on the mana cost. Other than that, we're just taking some damage reduction. And then it does a kind of like slam ability whenever you stop the channel. I'm just increasing the area effect of that, as we are going to be stacking a bunch of ailments in this build. So early on, it's going to be Bleed and Ignite. and eventually we're going to convert that to Electrify. And that big hit at the end of the charge can actually apply those ailments. So just making a massive area can make it hit big packs of mobs that just apply like a bleed or ignite and just kill the pack for you. So that's why we're going that direction. Alrighty, guys. Next up, I want to go over the base Sentinel passive tree to start out here. Again, we're going to have a slider here at the bottom to show you which order to take everything. For the first 4 points, we are going to be going into Juggernaut. What this is going to do is give us +4 strength. Strength will give us armor as well as increased damage for our hammer throw. And then it's also going to give us 16% fire and void res. Now, there's not a ton of fire mobs right at the beginning outside of the little spinny guys and the firebirds. However, we are going to have several nodes right at the beginning of the campaign that have a bunch of void damage. That void res is going to be really big. Next up, we'll take 1 point to Fearless as a travel point. It'll also give us a little bit of health from the Vitality. And then we will take 1 point into Stalwart. This is going to be a block build as one of our layered defenses. So getting that 3% block chance here early is going to be really strong. Next, we'll be taking the 5 points into Armorclad. Basically, every Sentinel build in existence since this node has become a thing has taken these 5 points. Sentinel has always struggled with damage mitigation at the end game, so getting that minus 10% damage taken from nearby enemies is really big. On top of that, it's going to give us some more armor, which is another defensive layer we will be scaling. Next, we are trying to go zoom as quickly as we can. So 4 points into Valiant Charge for the increased cooldown recovery for our movement skills, as well as getting a little bit more extra life. These last 5 points are going to be how we sustain our mana in the very early game. So whenever we use Smite directly, it is going to give us 10 mana back, as well as heal us for 10% of our missing health. So we're primarily going to be using throwing skills, whether that's hammer throw or javelin. But in the early game, we can throw in some directly cast smites to regain our mana whenever our mana pool gets depleted, depending on how long it takes you to get those minus mana cost rings. And then that's going to wrap up the base Sentinel tree. Alrighty guys, next up I want to go over some of the early game gearing and kind of what to look for on stats for the first 20 levels. So the big thing you really want to focus on is defenses. Just getting as much resistance as you can, a little bit of life and health regen early on is going to make a really big difference with whether you're surviving or not. Especially when I'm planning on playing hardcore right off the start, keeping alive during that early phase is going to be the hardest part until you get some of the rest of your gear and skill synergies going into place. So what I'm generally looking for here, on like helmets or other bases, any base that gives you early res, like this level 6 helmet that gives you fire res is really, really strong. Getting a little bit of health regen, and then whatever res you can. Your chest armor is going to be one of your biggest resistance pieces, as a tier 2 res on your body armor is going to be much higher than a tier 2 res on another piece of gear. So I typically try to go for like Fizz res and Ellie res or Fizz res and Void res on the chest armor, just to mitigate a lot of the early damage types I'm going to be running into. The other big thing to call out for this build is your rings. Really try to get that minus mana cost for throwing skills on your ring. It's going to highlight it on the loot filter, making it impossible for you to miss. But any ring that has minus throwing cost on it is going to be infinitely better than anything else that you're going to acquire. A T1 minus throwing cost is going to be the same mana as the T5. So just trying to at least get that first shard on most of your rings is going to make a massive difference for your mana sustain. Other than that, silver rings are typically the best base early, just for that extra movement speed, and then just getting a little bit of res and health regen. The next big call out is on your gloves and relic and amulet. You can get flat throwing damage. Now, later, after level 20, we're going to be transitioning to more of a damage over time build, but if you do get some flat throwing damage on any of these 3 pieces, it is going to make a big difference on your damage output with hammer throw. Again, just for like relic, getting some ignite chance on here early is really good. Ailments at a base damage early on do a lot of damage. So for your weapon, it's not going to matter what type of weapon you're using. Throwing damage doesn't get any of the flat damage from any of the weapons, so you can use a sword, scepter, wand, one-handed mace, one-handed axe. Just any one-hander in general is going to be really good. And then mainly just be looking for chance to apply ignite, chance to apply bleed, and then early on percentile fizz damage will apply to your hammer throw. Anything on here that says like flat damage here, like melee cold, will not apply to your throwing skills, so don't bother with it. Just try to get that percentile fizz and then some like ignite and bleed chance. The next big thing to call out is make sure you're using a shield for your offhand. It's going to help our survivability tremendously in the early game, especially since we don't benefit from the much higher flat damage of the two-handers. If you get a Targe shield, which is a level 3 shield, it does give you Ellie res automatically on it. And then on top of that, you can get a rare affix that gives you all resistance on your shields. Just remember, you're not going to get a lot of them. They're going to be kind of rare, so you won't get as high of a res as you would on like a single resistance. So just some good callouts there. Early idols, you're basically just going for anything with res and health on it is going to be great in the early game. You're probably not going to run into any of the like class-specific idols until after level 20. And then that's going to wrap up kind of the early leveling stage until you get access to the main skills of the build. Alrighty, guys. Last thing to go over for kind of like the early leveling experience is I wanted to go over some of the uniques to really look out for that can make your leveling experience drastically easier. I don't like making leveling planners with uniques in there because we're all starting off fresh. No one knows what we're going to get. So these are the uniques that I would look out for. A good way to make sure that you're able to grab a lot of these while you're going through is anytime you see a nemesis monster pop up on the minimap, always go check it. If it doesn't have a unique you want, banish it. So that way, next time you run into him, you'll reroll his uniques. Killing any of the lizards with the golden beam coming from them will also drop you uniques. So doing just those two things while you're going through the campaign should drastically increase your odds at getting one of these items. The first thing is the Bleeding Hearts unique amulet. This has been a go-to leveling unique item for a very, very long time. It's going to give us increased throwing attack speed. And then the big part is it's going to give us a metric crap ton of damage leech to health. It's very specific that it doesn't say hit damage on there, but just damage in general, which is going to apply to the damage over time. You're not really going to get affected, especially early game, by the inflicted with the bleed whenever you cast a spell. Our only spell that we have is Smite, and you should really only be casting that early game when you're running out of mana. Most of the time, you're going to be casting Javelin, so that bleed shouldn't really affect you that much. Next item is the Cradle of the Erased. This is a fantastic shield to get. It is on a Targe base, so it's going to give you Ellie res, you're going to get some block chance, and then you get a unique mechanic here where you gain a stack of Golden Aegis each second. And then what Golden Aegis does is gives you 8 to 11% block chance per stack of Golden Aegis, and then whenever you do block, you lose 1 stack. So it gives you a crap ton of block chance right out the gate. That's really strong. You do also get block effectiveness per total uncapped res, but early game, that's not going to be a whole lot since you're not going to be really overcapping. The other really big part about the shield is that it's a Leader's Will item. So it's going to have a random number of Leader's Will on it, and then as you get kills, it's going to add stats to the item. One of the practice runs that I did over the last month, I ended up getting like T7 all res on it. So it covered almost my entire res across my character the whole way through the campaign. So really, really good item to look out for. Next item here is the Crab Ring, as everybody calls it. So what the Crab Ring does is it gets rid of your ability to use the evade button, but it does give you the passive ability that's going to give you swiftness, which increases your movement speed per character level. So it's going to help you run a lot faster, get into those campaigns even easier. It's going to give you a bunch of vitality, which is going to give you health, and it's going to give you 6% all attributes for even more vitality, strength, dex. All of those are going to give you damage multis early on. And then last, it also gives you some percentile armor. So just really good early leveling unique. Code of the Erased is actually an endgame unique that you can get starting at level 30. So it's barely into like the early leveling category, but keep an eye out for these. This is actually your go-to like endgame unique that you want. It's also Weaver's Will item, so it might end up giving you like T7 like levels of Smite or damage over time or anything like that. It's really strong. Next, we have the advent of the erase. It's going to give you some movement speed. It gives you a chance to gain haste whenever a nearby enemy dies, which is going to help you move way faster. You take less damage over time. And then on top of that, this is also a Weaver's Will unique. I did also have a practice run where I got a like T6 movement speed on here right out the gate at like level 20, and I used it to like level 60 because I was just zooming. So really cool unique that you can find early on. Next, we have the Thornslinger belt. It's a level 12 belt. It gives you +1 to level of all your physical skills, so that'll give you extra Javelin levels. It gives you a chance to apply Bleed, which we're going to be converting over to Electrify later on. But that'll be really good for your hammer throws early. You get movement speed and throwing attack speed, so all really, really good stats. Next, we have the Font of the Erased. Font of the Erased is either really bad or really good. So it's going to give you some LE res, which is always great. Percentile health is never bad. Mana spent as ward, you're not really going to be spending that much mana early game, and we're not really doing anything with ward, so that's kind of dead. But the big part about it is that it is a Weaver's Will item, which means you might end up with like a T7 stat at level like 20. So you could get like T7 elemental damage over time, or T7 minus throwing mana cost, or T7 throwing attack speed. Any of that stuff is really good, or even a T7 res of anything is almost instant cap for that res. So picking these up, getting a couple kills with them, seeing what stats you get for them, throw them on the ground if they're bad. If they end up good, you could be using it for the rest of the campaign. All right, Avaris. This is actually one of the pair of gloves that you are guaranteed to get from one of the early quests there that you have to do to progress the campaign. So it's impossible for you not to get these. You are going to be using these for a majority of the way through the campaign because it gives you elemental damage leached as health. So if you don't get access to like a bleeding heart, this is going to help sustain all of your leech early, and all of your dot damage from Electrify is just going to automatically go to health. LE res isn't bad, increased leech rate isn't bad, so great early gloves that everybody gets access to. All right, now we have the king daddy of leveling uniques, the Fire Starter's Torch. This is probably just overall the best leveling unique for every single build for the early game. Even if you have no fire synergy whatsoever, this item is insane. So what it does, if you're not familiar with it, is it's going to give you a 14 to a 26% chance to apply Spreading Flames on hit. What Spreading Flames does is it's a fire damage over time ailment similar to Ignite, except it only has one stack. You can't get more than one stack on an enemy, but it has a really, really high base damage for that one stack. So once this gets applied on an enemy, it's basically going to kill them unless it's like a boss. It's just going to instantly kill that mob. And then the best part is if you apply Spreading Flames to one enemy, it will auto-apply Spreading Flames to everything around it. So if you're playing with like Hammer Throw that hits really fast, really often, you throw into a pack, it's pretty much guaranteed it's going to apply Spreading Flames to one enemy, which is going to apply to all of them, and then you just run past them. They're all going to die behind you. On top of that, you get more fire damage to enemies afflicted by Spreading Flames. So it's basically just a 42% more multiplier to the Spreading Flames damage that you're doing. -4 mana cost for fire skills. That will apply to Smite before you do the lightning conversion, and a little bit of move speed. If you get this item early on, which in all the practice runs I did this last like month and a half, I probably got it on like 45 to 50% of my runs. So it's really common as long as you're killing those nemesis monsters and the legendary or the unique loot lizards. Then you're just got an easy mode for like the first 40 levels are going to be an absolute cakewalk. Characters that have a little bit more fire synergy tend to do really good with it. Like if you're playing mage with like fireball leveling, it's really, really insane. You can get fire synergy of Sentinel. I'm just not going to spec my whole character around trying to play it because it does fall off once you start getting to like level like 50, 60. But this is just easy mode through all the early campaign if you do get access to this item. And that'll kind of wrap up all of the twink leveling gear that you kind of want to look out for. Alrighty, guys, so we've made it to level 20. We've unlocked the ability to use Javelin and Smite, our main focus of the build. So we are now going to be transitioning away from Hammer Throw. So you can go into your Hammer Throw, you can click on it and click Respec, and you can go ahead and take that off your bar now. And then what we're going to be grabbing here first is Javelin. So Javelin by default is going to throw a spear that is going to pierce all the enemies in its path and hit them. Now, we're going to pull our slider bar here down to the bottom so we can kind of go through the progression. The first 2 points we're going to be taking into Holy Spears. This is going to give us Javelin deals more lightning damage. It is important to note that anything that has a skill name, such as like Javelin deals more and doesn't specifically say hit damage, does actually apply to all ailments that Javelin applies. So this is basically 8% more ailment damage for our Javelin. It is going to give us quite a bit of flat damage. Flat damage will be really nice for the first 2 levels. However, here in just a second, we're going to be transitioning to a fully damage over time build, but it's not terrible to get right out the gate here. The next point is going to be Divine Throws. What this does is it fully converts Javelin from a physical skill over to a lightning skill. So it no longer scales with percentile fizz damage, but now percentile lightning damage. Also, it is important to note that it will globally convert all Ignite Chance and Bleed Chance to Electrify. So what that means is even if I get Ignite Chance on my weapon, it is still going to change that Ignite Chance into Electrify when it comes to Javelin. Now, what Electrify is our main bread and butter for the build. It's how we're doing all of our damage. It is a lightning ailment that you can stack infinitely onto monsters that does lightning damage over time. So really, really strong note here. After that, we'll be grabbing the 4 points into Purifying Lightning, giving us the 100% chance to apply Electrify on hit with Javelin, and 60% Lightning Pen for Electrify. After that, we'll be grabbing the 1 point into Divine Fury. Do not take any more points than that. What this is going to do is when Javelin hits a target, it is going to shoot out 2 lightning spears behind it that are going to hit other enemies, giving us some nice area clear. It does make it so Javelin no longer pierces, and it does add 2 extra mana cost. Now, we only need 1 point into here. Once we get one of our other nodes, we are going to have as much AoE as we could ever want, and we don't want to get the extra mana cost that this skill or this node is going to apply. Next, we'll be taking the 1 travel point to my delivery. Again, a 5% more damage multi for all our ailments, and the extra 5% attack speed doesn't hurt either. Then we'll be taking the 3 points to do Excellent Balance. This is going to give us -9 mana cost. The next couple of points we're going to grab are going to add a lot of mana cost. So this is going to be really vital for sustaining that, as well as pairing with the minus mana cost on raids. By default, Javelin only costs 9 mana, so that makes this a 0 mana cost, plus the 2 mana from Divine Fury. Next, we'll take 1 Traveler point into Warrior Mark. This literally does nothing since we don't stack hardly any strength or dex, so don't even worry about it. And then we have the big daddy node here, Siege Barrage. What this is going to do is change Javelin into a, instead of a throwing skill that hits a target and then shoots out projectiles behind it, it is now shooting 4 javelins up into the air that come down in shotgun onto a target. So you can hit all 4 javelins on 1 target, and every single one of those javelins is going to spawn lightning spears from Divine Fury. So just with this 1 node, we now have 8 Divine Fury lightning spears that are going to be shooting out and AoEing all of our targets. This is going to add 10 flat mana cost though, so now we're at 12 flat mana. Next, we'll grab the 2 points into Spike Bombardment. It is going to add an extra 40% mana cost, but it's going to add 2 additional javelins for a total of 6 javelins and 12 lightning spears with every single cast. And later on, we're even going to be auto-procking Smite from this. After that, we'll be taking 1 point to Burning Strength. That 25% Ignite chance is going to get converted to Electrify, so we're now at 125 Electrify chance. If you've never played an ailment build inside of Last Epoch, I did want to let you know how it works is if you have a 125% chance to apply Electrify. It will give you a 1 stack of Electrify 100% of the time, and then a 25% chance to give you 2 stacks of Electrify. So going over that 100% is actually really, really big. And then finally, we're going to put our last 3 points into Spear to the Thigh. Javelin deals more damage over time, multiplicative with other modifiers. So all of its Electrify chance is going to be 75% more damage. And then that will finish up our Javelin skill tree. Next up, we have our Smite skill here. What this does, if you never used it before, is it sends a fiery bolt from the sky that comes down and hits an enemy, and it does spell damage by default. Now, this also can apply ailments, and later on, we're going to get some items that are going to make this automatically cast with our Javelin. So that's what really turns it in kind of to a one-button build, as most of our other skills are just passive buffs. But early game, we can actually use Smite paired with one of the earlier nodes we talked about in the Sentinel tree. Whenever you directly cast Smite, it gives you mana back. So because we're going to get such a hefty cost from Javelin, we're going to throw those as much as we can. Whenever our mana gets low, we're just going to manually cast a couple Smites, get the mana back up again, and start throwing more Javelins. So how we're going to level this guy? It is very important to follow the slider here for Smite, as it can get a little sticky if you take the wrong points the right points, but at the wrong time. So to start out, we're going to put 1 travel point into Blinding Flash. We don't care about this at all. It gives you a chance to blind enemies, which is great, and it makes it harder for them to crit you, and then you get a little bit more hit damage. We're not stacking hit at all, so this node does not matter. Next up, we're grabbing 2 points into Piety. This will give us a 50% chance to apply Electrify with our Smite, which is great because that's the whole thing we're trying to do with this build. After that, we'll be taking the 1.2 Order of Lagan. Works the same way that we did with our Javelin tree. So this is going to fully convert our Smite over to lightning damage from fire damage, and it is also going to globally convert Ignite chance to Electrify chance. It is important to call out that Javelin can globally convert Ignite and Bleed chance, where Smite only globally converts Ignite chance. So if you have a weapon there and you've got one that's got Ignite on it and one that's got Bleed, try to go for the Ignite weapon, as both of our main skills will get the conversion over to Electrify chance. After that, what we'll be grabbing is the second point into Blinding Flash, mainly just so we get access to Sacrifice. Sacrifice is what makes Smite one of the king abilities to use for ailment stacking throughout the last few years in Last Epoch. So each point of Sacrifice is going to give us a 50% more damage multi that's applying to all the ailments it applies, which is insane for 1 point. And we can put 5 points into this node for 250% more damage. It's one of the highest multiplier nodes in the entire game. So really, really strong. The downside is Smite, now when it's cast, whether it's directly cast or procced, is going to cost 3% of your current health. And this does scale with each point into Sacrifice. So how we're going to offset that here is with Atonement. So every point of Sacrifice that you put in, you're going to want to put in at least 1 point into Atonement to kind of offset it. So Sacrifice node now costs less health. So that's going to minus 20% of the health cost off from Sacrifice here. So basically what you're going to do is just go 1 point, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point until you get 5 points in both of these guys. And eventually this is going to minus 100% of the Sacrifice health costs. You will get some leech gloves that are a guaranteed drop from one of the very early quests you do. That's going to give you elemental damage, leeches health. That will also kind of offset the early levels of Sacrifice. But once you get the 5 points in there, we're going to have that 250% multi, the 15% health cost that's completely negated by Atonement. After that, we are going to be grabbing 1 point into Unbalanced Scale. What this is going to do is Smite now also casts 3 lightning bolts at nearby targets. So kind of similar to how the Javelin node works, where it sends out those little lightning bolts. This is also going to do that. However, it is important to note that the lightning bolts from here, from Unbalanced Scale, do actually hit on a single target. So if there are more targets to hit, it's going to try to hit them. If there's only one target, it still can hit those lightning bolts on top of the same target. We are not going to grab the extra nodes here, as it is a lot of extra points for a very minute amount of damage. So what we're going to be doing with our next 2 points is putting them into Piety, go up to a 100% chance to Electrify on Smite, and then we'll be putting the remaining 2 points into Charged Hand. That's going to give us 30% Lightning Penetration with Electrify and 30% Electrify Duration. This is the first node that we actually get Electrify Duration on, which is going to be really, really nice for those big campaign bosses. And then that's going to wrap up the Smite tree. Now, it's important to know, I kind of put this in the wrong order, but I would recommend actually speccing into Shield Rush. I may swap this around on the planner to make it easier to notice, but I would take Shield Rush as your level 20 specialization, or just leave it as your second one from your Hammer Throw build, and then go Javelin Smite after that. Because you do want the Rush Mastery node here that makes it cost significantly less mana, so you're not going to be running into any mana issues. I don't want to spend too much time going over the Shield Rush tree, as like I was saying earlier, most of this is basically useless. You get a little bit of less damage taken while you're using Shield Rush. All of these extra nodes are just more damage multis and like increase area of effect, because it does a big area damage at the end of the shield charge. This makes it hit twice instead of once, and basically that's just because we're going to be getting some generic chances to apply Electrify later on, and so that big explosion can just apply Electrify to big packs and kill some of the smaller monsters. So nothing else really matters on this tree though. Just make sure you're rushing for those mana efficiency nodes first. For our fourth skill, we are going to have Holy Aura. This is the specialized skill for going Paladin on the subclass, and this is going to be a mostly passive skill. What it's going to do is you and nearby allies gain 30% increased damage and 15% LE res. And then if you want to click it, it will actually double any of the passive stat bonuses that you gain from the skill for 4 seconds. So if this is something that you just don't ever want to deal about, you just want a one-button build, you just throw this onto your bar and never click it, and it's going to be totally fine. It does help you get some good burst, though, for bosses if you do activate it. So how we are going to level this tree, we're going to put 2 travel points into Vital Boon. We're going to be a healthy leech build, so the regen isn't really going to do a whole lot for us outside of the early game. But we mainly want to get access to Purification as soon as we can. What this does, this is the one time you do kind of want to activate it, especially in the early game, is it's going to give you access to a cleanse. What a cleanse does in this game is anytime you have any kind of stacking negative debuff on you or ailment, such as like getting hit with poison or bleed or ignite, this will just completely wipe it off you if you activate the ability. This is really big to get early because there is like 2 zones in particular around the like 25 to 30 range where there's going to be a whole bunch of poison and bleed bobs. That's kind of the first gear check that you come in through on the campaign, especially if you're doing the hardcore race like I am. This is going to be a lifesaver for you to be able to just instantly wipe off all those stacks and not die to ailments. After that, we're going to be grabbing the 3 points into Raya's Devotion. Such a good node for us. What it's going to do is give us 15% Ignite and Electrify chance. Because of our global conversion, this is basically just giving us 30% Electrify chance for free, and then 60% when you do activate the Holy Aura. After that, we're going to be grabbing the 5 points into Shelter from the Storm. This is going to give us an additional 25% elemental resistance. With the 15 that we get here, we're going to be getting 40% LE res for free. Paladin is one of the easiest characters to get resistance on without having any of it on your gear. Late game, if you look at some of the higher end planners, I literally don't have res on any of my gear. It's just all health, which is really nice to gear around. So getting that 40% res here is so nice. It's also going to give us 15% endurance. If you don't know what endurance is, it is a defensive stat for health stackers, which we are. and you'll have what's called an endurance threshold, which is a certain amount of your life that if you get within that threshold, you then take less damage. So by default, you get 20% of your max life as endurance threshold. And then there's a couple other like skills and affixes on your gear that will allow you to get a little bit higher. Most health stackers don't actually care about getting your endurance threshold super high. What you do want is to get your endurance percentage up a lot higher. I think it starts out at 30% less damage taken in your endurance threshold by default, and then it caps out at 60%. So the reason why you want to get your percentile endurance up really high is if you're at 5,000 health and your endurance threshold is only 1,000 and you take a massive hit that would have typically one-shot you, let's say it's like a 5,000 damage hit, for example, and that hit is going to bring you below what your endurance threshold would be, it is going to apply the damage mitigation to that hit. So this is basically just the one-shot prevention stat is a good way to look at it. It is something that we're going to be capping at 60% to make sure we're not getting one-shot by a random massive hit from like a boss. All right, next up, guys, we're going to be taking the 3 points and here for the extra attack speed. I know it says attack speed, but it does actually apply to our throwing speed, which can be a little bit hard to get a lot of throw speed early on. So the extra 9% here, or the 18% whenever you activate Holy Aura, is pretty big. Next, we'll be taking the 2 points into Briar's Fury. It is going to give us 10% Lightning Pen, which is great. Sadly, we don't convert Fire Pen, so that won't really apply to us, but the extra 10% penetration is really big. I know some people would go for the Expedite, but with how I'm building this out for the hardcore race, you have to take 4 travel points that give you basically nothing right here to get 3 points into here, and I just didn't have those extra leftover points. If you're going softcore, you could take out some of the nodes from Shelter from the Storm and go into here, but I'm just going to put the 4 points into Firestorm for the global 40% increased damage. And then that will wrap up our Holy Aura skill. For the final skill, we are going to be picking up Symbols of Hope, since we already kind of went over Shield Rush. Symbols of Hope is a completely reworked skill from what it used to be last season. Last season, this used to be called Sigils of Hope. They said they did the name change because they're going to be using sigils for something else in the future. Who knows? It's going to be confusing for a little while, but now we have Symbols of Hope. How this used to work is you used to have to take some nodes over here that would give you a chance to get Symbols of Hope on kill. Otherwise, you had to like spam cast it to get these to proc for you. But what happens now is every 2 seconds, you passively summon a symbol that orbits around you. And then that symbol gives you a AoE like buff to your character and nearby allies that gives you by base 3 additional fire damage and increase health generation. Now, the new part too is if you activate the skill, it will consume all of your symbols, granting 100 ward and then 5% less damage taken per symbol for 3 seconds. So another skill that if you're just kind of casually playing, you can just throw it up on your bar, it'll start passively generating, and you never have to worry about it. Now, the passive stuff doesn't really do a whole lot for us, so let's get into what we're going to be speccing into. The first 2 points, we're going to be going to Empowering Symbols. So now our symbols are going to increase our damage by 10% per symbol. So that's a 30% damage at base here with our 3 symbols. Next, we'll be taking 1 point to Celestial Concentration. It's going to give us 2% increased mana regen. So 2% times the 3 symbols, that's 6% extra mana regen. But mainly we want to get access to Zeal of the Storms. So all of our symbols are now going to give us 30% Electrify chance. So that is 90% Electrify chance from our passive 3 symbols. And we will have 100% uptime on all 3 symbols, by the way. It is very easy to maintain. Next, we're going to be grabbing the 5 points in a Burning Sign for the additional 30% Ignite chance, which gets globally converted for both Smite and Javelin to more Electrify chance. So now we're basically getting 60% Electrify chance per symbol. So right off the gate, we're getting 180% Electrify chance, which is just a huge amount of ailment for free. All right, after that, we're going to take 2 travel points into iron symbols. It will give us a little bit of the endurance threshold, which we talked about in the previous tree, which is nice, but not really something we're striving to get a lot of. This is going to give us 50% increased cooldown recovery speed for the active ability of Symbols of Hope. I'm not really planning on using the active ability too often, and except for like oh shit moments. So it should be very rare. So this is mainly just travel points. But then we'll be taking the 1 point into tetragram. That's going to give us +1 maximum symbols. This is really big. So instead of 3 max symbols, we're now at 4. So you're basically just going to add all these nodes again. So it's another 60% electrify chance, another 10% increased damage. Just really, really strong. Next up, because I am playing hardcore, I'm going to be taking the 1 travel point to meditation. This does make it so symbols only affect you instead of your allies. Most people play your ARPGs alone. If you got buddies, you can go a different route here I'll go over. It does also double the health regen from your symbols, but I'm mainly taking it so I can get access to Signs of the Guardian. It's going to give me 1% block chance per active sigil and an additional 15% block effectiveness. So I just get 4% block here for free. Later on with better gear, because this is kind of just a budget setup that we're going to be going with right now, we'll get all 3 points. So we'll end up getting like 12% block, which is really, really strong. If you are playing softcore, what I'd recommend doing, drop these 2 points here and just put them into empowering symbols, get that extra damage. All right, next up, let's go over the passive tree and what we're going to be taking in all of the other trees. So in the budget gear setup, which is mainly just get you through the campaign, make it so you get all of your mana rings that you need, and making sure you're getting all the rare pieces of gear. You haven't maybe got like 1 or 2 exalted pieces of gear that look good, but kind of that like early end game, end of campaign type gearing is what we're looking at here. So as far as that goes, the base sentinel tree is not going to change at all from the original hammer tree that we're going to be doing. You're still probably going to want the 5 points in the Time of Faith to help save your mana if you ever go low by directly casting Smite. If your mana is starting to feel really good though, what you can do is just throw these over into Fearless for some extra early health. All right, so we'll go through the slider here. So that's going to be the base sentinel tree. Next up, we're going to be going into the Paladin tree. So we're going to be taking 5 points into Defiance. What this is going to do is give us 5 attunement. Attunement's just naturally going to increase our maximum mana. It does also give us a little bit of damage scaling for Smite, which isn't terrible. But the main reason why we're taking it early on is for the 15 free elemental res. Again, just trying to take away as much of that res that I need in my gear with being in hardcore. Also, it is going to give you a 5-point bonus where your endurance threshold, you're going to get free endurance threshold per 2% uncapped LE res. So what that means in Last Epoch is reses cap at 75%. So if you have 80% lightning res, then you are 5% over capped. It becomes really easy for Sentinel to be over capped. Like I said, you get so much res for free, especially like kind of that early end game stage. You're going to still have res on some of your gear. And then once you start covering it all with like your passives, you're just going to end up with a whole bunch of overcapped res, giving you a little bit of extra endurance threshold, making it easier to stay alive. All right, next up, guys, we're going to be putting 5 points into Phoenix Strike. All of this Ignite chance getting converted to Electrify chance. So this is basically just 60% Electrify chance. After that, we will be going over one of the new nodes that they kind of reworked here for Paladin, Blinding Light. This is going to give us an additional 35% blind chance. So most of the enemies are going to end up getting blind from the blind we have in Smite and this node. It's going to give us 35% Electrify chance, and then it's going to have a 5-point bonus that's going to increase both the blind and Electrify duration, really helping that boss DPS out a lot. Once we get to that point, it's going to give us access to Symbols of Hope, which is going to allow us to specialize into that as a skill. And then because I am playing hardcore, I'm going to actually jump over a little bit earlier than I probably would in softcore to the Void Knight tree, which we're going to have a note here that every single Sentinel is going to want to take no matter what build you're playing. We're going to be taking 5 points into Abyssal Endurance. This is going to give us 40 health, 20% Void Res, and 20% Fizz Res. But the big thing here is the 5-point threshold bonus. So we are going to get minus 5% damage taken for both void and physical. Any percentile damage reduction we can take, we are absolutely going to get. That's going to help out quite a bit, since the main damage type that you take in this game is physical damage. After that, we're going to be jumping over to the Forged Guard tree really quick to take the 3 points into Steel Aegis. This is going to give us armor, some block effectiveness, and a 3-point bonus that gives us an additional 3% block chance. We're going to start wanting to get that block chance up high as quickly as we can. Next, going more into that block chance, we're going to take the 3 points into Honor. It is going to give us more block effectiveness, which mitigates the damage that we're taking from attacks that we're blocking. It's going to give us some stun avoidance, and again, the 3-point bonus, another 3% block chance. So we're getting 9% block chance just between the Paladin nodes, this node from Steel Aegis, and the early point we got from Stalwork. So just a free 9% block chance right out the gate. Next up, we'll be putting a couple more points over into Phoenix Strike, getting that extra Electrify chance conversion, just to get us over to this next row. Then we'll be taking the 5 points into Piety. That's going to give us 15% Lightning Pen, which will apply to all of our Electrify. It's going to give us another free 30% Lightning Res. It's more free res everywhere we go. And then the massive 5-point bonus that says we're going to do 5% more damage to Electrify. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you don't know how the math calculations work for Last Epoch, I've kind of hinted at it in previously in the video too. You get all the regular like flat Electrify damage, and then you get all your percentile damages and damage over time and stuff like that, and it multiplies all of those together. And then at the very end of the calculation, anything that says more damage is then getting multiplied. So this is just 5% more damage in total, which is really, really strong. Next up, we'll be taking the 5 points into Sanctuary Guardian. What this is going to do is give us an additional 250 armor while we're equipping a shield. We don't care about the cast speed at all. We don't cast anything outside of Smite in the early game. And then the 5-point bonus is an additional 15% all res. So this applies to everything: physical, poison, necrotic, Ellie res, everything there, just 15 free res across the board, allowing us to put more health onto our gear. Next up, we'll be taking the 4 points into Shield Wall for an additional 8% block chance. It's also going to give us health gained on blocks. This is our first kind of source of that. Just a nice extra little sustain. And then we are going to take 20% less stun duration on us. If you're stunned, you're not hitting. If you're not hitting, you're not leeching, which means you can die. So a little bit of stun duration is really great. The downside of the point is it's going to give you 30% less dodge chance. This used to be 100%. I don't really get the change. Nobody's really going that much dodge on their Sentinel anyways, but sure, we're stacking 0 dodge, so it doesn't matter. Next up, we'll be taking the 5 points into Judgment of the Storm. This is going to give us our shock chance. So shock is going to make enemies have less lightning res from your attacks. It does only stack up to 10 times, and we're hitting so fast in this build that this is the only shock chance that we need in the entire build. So that covers us for that. As well as we are going to get Lightning Res Shred Chance, which is very similar to Shock. It's going to strip away some of their Lightning Res. It also stacks up to 10 times, so it is going to just be all of the Lightning Shred Chance we need. And we're going to get 25% Electrify Chance on top of that. And then the 5-point bonus here is really, really big. This is one of the biggest multipliers that we get out of the entire build. If you look at some of the planners and you didn't go over the passive nodes, you're probably asking, why do I have a bunch of crit multi all over my gear for a dot build? So what this reads is you deal more lightning damage. So again, another more multiplier, lightning damage over time per 2% added critical strike multiplier above the base 200%. So what that's saying is every character by default has 200% crit multi. So anything extra we get on our gear or our passives is going to basically, you're going to take your crit multi and divide it by 2 on whatever it is. And then that's how much more lightning damage over time you're taking. So really, really strong node. Next up, we'll be taking the 4 points into Reverence of Duality. This is one of the few places on the passive tree here that we can actually get percentile health. That is the main reason we're getting this. The increased damage does help, but it's not more damage, just percentile, so it really doesn't do that much. We don't use any healing like spells really outside of Smite. We're not close enough to really get healed by them, so the healing effectiveness doesn't do anything. And then extra mana is always good. Just makes it so it takes a little bit longer for you to run out of mana, but mainly just doing this to get access to the health. Next, we'll take 1 point for right now into Covenant of Light because it's tied to the next node we're going to be going into. What this is going to do is increase the effect of Holy Aura and Symbols from their passive benefits. So all of those different passives we got from both of those are just getting amped by another 4%. Next, we'll be putting the 5 points into Covenant of Dominion. This is basically just going to give us percentile lightning damage, which, as I said before, is not super great. The 5% movement speed is really good. And the reason why I wanted to kind of get this earlier rather than later is for the 5-point bonus, where we get a free 25% increased mana regen while we're affected by Holy Aura, which is all the time, just to help with our mana sustain a little bit. Next, we're going to go back to Reverence of Duality, grab all 12 nodes in there. 25% increased health is just way too strong to pass up on, especially if you're doing any hardcore. After that, we'll be grabbing the 10 points into Holy Precision. If you didn't know about the Judgment of Storm node, this would have made 0 sense, but the only reason why we're getting this is the 50% critical strike multiplier. We don't care about crit chance at all, so basically that is 25% more lightning damage over time for those 10 points, which is definitely worth the points. Next, we'll be finishing out the points of the Covenant of Light to give us 20% increased effect of our Holy Aura and Symbols passive effect. And then we'll be grabbing these 7 points into Covenant of Protection. This is going to give us 56% increased armor. I typically don't grab this super early because it takes a little while before we get a whole bunch of flat armor by getting higher level base gear and getting a little bit of armor on our gear itself. But once we do get that, this 56% increased armor is really good, as well as it gives us our first application of armor mitigation also applies to damage over time. So 14% of our total mitigation from armor gets applied to dot damage, such as like bleeds, poisons, ignites, stuff like that. There's not a lot of dot defense in the game, except for Sentinel. Sentinel does actually get quite a bit of it because we are an armor stacker, so these are some really good defensive nodes. Next up, we're kind of just going to be filling out some of the points that we didn't take before. So we're going to be finishing out the Phoenix Strike node for the extra Electrify chance. We're going to be grabbing the extra 2 points in Blinding Light for the extra Electrify chance. We'll grab the 1 extra point to Piety for the Lightning Pen. And then we'll be finishing out as many points as we can into Covenant of Dominion just for the extra movement speed and lightning damage. And then that's going to kind of wrap up the passive points here for the budget version of the build. For the more expensive versions, I make some very, very minor tweaks that I'll call out when I go over some of those changes, but just wanted to make sure you guys get a kind of general concept for why we're taking each node and what it does for the build overall. So that will wrap up the passive tree. Alrighty, guys. Next up, I want to start going over the gear. Now, this is a budget setup here. I will have the budget planner in here. We are using 0 unique items, 0 exalted items, 0 enchanted idols. I just want to show you what you kind of want to shoot for as a core for the gear. We will also have planners that show like 1 exalted item, like what stats you want to go for, and like a couple easy to get uniques. And then I'll even have a just giga crazy aspirational planner for the people who are playing on merchant that just want to buy all these insane pieces of gear. If you really want to min-max it, kind of what to go for. So let's start with the gear here. What you're going to be going for on the helmet, you really want to try to get the chance to apply Electrify on hit with lightning skills. So this is a new mod that did not exist until this season. So we're just getting so much more synergy for Electrify. Other than that, Vitality is really good. There isn't a lot of other prefixes that will give you damage. So even in softcore, I would honestly just go Vitality. Vitality gives you health. Health means you're staying alive. For the suffixes, I would go for percentile health and percentile increased armor. You could early on go for percentile health and flat health, but at the end game, when you start getting all of your stats all together, percentile armor is going to be key. But early on, double health is probably better. For the, oh, sorry, I didn't go over the base type as well. Guys, base items in this game are really, really important. They are massive, and I cannot overstate that. So the best helmet to go for is the Leonine Great Helm. It is going to give you 550 armor, which is a crap ton. On top of that, it's going to give you 50 to 80%, 5% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. Every single build, in my opinion, with very few exceptions, either needs to get 100% critical strike avoidance or is up to 100% reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. The last thing you want, especially if you're playing hardcore, is to get the biggest crit of a small spider's life that suddenly hits you for like 5,000 damage or something and just ruins your day. You need to have critical strike reduction in some way. So that's a great way to do that. There are some other helms that you can use while you're kind of leveling. Getting this guy here that gives you a little bit of vitality and armor is great. For the Terror Crown, you could use the Augury Helm that gives you some extra cooldown and a little bit of free Void res while you're trying to kind of work out your res. Crit Multi is probably the second best helm outside of the Great Helm because Crit Multi gets converted to more lightning damage over time. Like Spiked Helm with Fizz Res is also really good. So just get stuff that looks like it's been synergistic based on what we have talked about with our passive tree and skills. I try to break it down for you so you can kind of make those judgment calls yourself. But Great Helm is by far the best once you get to level 85 and you can start equipping these guys. Next up, we have the chest armor. The Champion Regalia is by far the best chest armor with the 700 flat armor it gives us. And then we get another source of armor mitigation, also applies some damage over time, which is fantastic. It is a high level base though. So anything else with high armor and like any kind of like res or other good synergistic stat, you can use that in the meantime. Again, we're just going for chance to apply Electrify, Vitality, Health, and Armor. Early game, go double health on there, and that will get you going. For our belt, the best base belt is the Praetorian belt for the additional flat armor. A really good option early when you're trying to fix all your reses is a Spider Silk, because it'll give you poison and cold res. Other than that, Coin Mill gives you a bunch of flat armor. Plated gives you some flat armor. But yeah, basically just use any of those bases until you get to the point where you can use Praetorian Belt, and then you're going to want to use that. As far as the stats that you're going for, the big stat you're going to want to go is increased elemental damage over time. How Last Epoch stats work is the more specific the stat is, the better it is. So you can also get for instance, lightning damage on a belt. But if you look here, a tier 5 is 40 to 60% increased lightning damage. But a tier 5 increased elemental damage over time is 71 to 110%. So it is substantially better. You can use both increased elemental damage over time and lightning if your mana regen is feeling good. But I kind of felt like the little bit of mana regen kind of went a long way. For the suffixes, we're going to go for percentile health and hybrid health. Hybrid health is a rarer stat to get, so if you don't have a lot of shards, you can just use flat health on the belt as well in the meantime while you're trying to get some little shards. Next up, we have the boots. Citadel boots are going to be by far the best base. They're the highest armor, and on top of that, they also are giving you reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. So as long as you're getting some decent rolls here, because this rolls 35 to 50, and Great Helm rolls 50 to 85, you can completely cap your less damage taken from critical strikes just from these two base items. That's just going into play how good base items are, because most builds are spending 2 to 3 stats on their gear just to fix their critical strike damage defense. So you can just do that with 2 base items here. As far as the stats, prioritize movement speed above all else, and then look for the hybrid health, vitality, and then more percentile armor. Again, you can replace the percentile armor with flat health in the early game. For the gloves, we're going the Eternal Gauntlet gloves. Those are the highest armor base, and then it also gives you the armor mitigation applies to damage over time. We are basically going to be taking no damage from ailments, and it's going to be great because that has been a sickness that has plagued LE for the last many, many years, and now we just have so much defense for it, and they reduce all the damage over time ailments as well, so it is going to be really strong on this build. The most important stat here for the gloves is the increased throwing attack speed. There's only a few places you can get it, so get it where you can. The only other really good stat is increased damage over time. You could also get like Dex or Strength on there, as those will apply to the damage for Javelin, but it doesn't apply to Smite, which is why we want to go damage over time. And then we're just looking for double health here. A good thing you can also get if you don't have it on your amulet, instead of flat health, you can also get frailty chance. So you want at least one item on your gear to have frailty chance on there. That will put a stacking debuff on enemies that makes them deal less damage. So if you don't get it on your amulet, make sure you either get it on your gloves or your relic. All right, next up, guys, we have the relic. I went with the Solarum banner because it gives you the 5% block chance there. And the little bit of health on block doesn't hurt. It's not really going to be that impactful late game, though. As far as these stats you're going to be looking for, you definitely want to get Critical Strike Multiplier for the more lightning damage over time it gives you. Increased elemental damage over time is really strong as well. Probably the second best stat, I just didn't want to put in too many rare mods on the budget gear, is actually going to the levels to Smite, because that will allow you to put more points into the lightning pen for Smite. So if you get those, you can look at some of the more advanced planners with the higher budget gear, and it will show you where to put those extra points. Another really good one that you can do is the levels of Symbols of Hope, which you can get those extra block chance nodes inside of Symbols of Hope. So any of those would be good. Just try to get crit multi above everything else. Other than that, I'm going for flat health and endurance. The endurance, you just need to make sure that you're hitting 60%. So I'm a little bit overcapped here. I'll put that to average. There we go. So I'm a little bit overcapped here, but yeah, just make sure you're at least getting to 60%. You can only get endurance percentage on your relic and your ring. So it doesn't matter where it's at between those items, just make sure you're capped. Next up, we have our rings. The base ring is really up for debate. Coral rings are really nice because they give you a bunch of vitality, which is going to give you extra health. But if you're struggling to get your reses early game, you can go for like gold ring. Silver ring is really strong with increased movement speed. Sapphire ring's not bad for the extra mana regen. You could go ruby ring. Sorry, I know my screen cuts it off, but you can go ruby ring for extra fire res, or ivory ring for extra necrotic res early game until you get some of like your blessings and stuff to help cover the rest of your resistance. As far as the stats on the rings, you want to get throwing attack speed. And then for the other prefix, now you're going to see 5 stats on this ring, so I kind of want to explain this really quick. You can seal off a stat to add a 5th stat with a Glyph of Despair. Glyphs of Despair are kind of rare in the early game, but you should at least have a few of them. And then basically how they work is the more mods that you have on an item, it increases the chance that you'll be able to seal an affix. And then the lower the tier of that affix, the more likely it is to seal. So if you have 4 stats on your ring, so let's say you have the throwing attack speed, throwing damage with minus mana cost, endurance, and block chance. If that throwing damage and mana cost is a T1, it is basically 100% chance that it is going to get sealed. It is a very, 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 very high chance. I think I've only failed it like 1 time. So you're going to want to start off with it having the minus mana cost. Make sure it has 4 stats on the ring, slam it with a Glyph of Despair, and seal that off. You don't care about the flat damage, and T1 is just as good as T5 for the mana cost, but make sure you do have minus mana cost on both your rings. Even if you don't have the chance to seal it, you'll just replace the increased elemental damage over time until you get a sealed ring. So early on, you can use throwing attack speed, minus mana cost. Once you get the seal, add the increased LE damage over time there. We're going to get that extra 15% endurance here to make sure we're capping. And then we're going to grab some block chance. You can put res there instead of block chance if you still need the res. It'll be a little while before you get all your blessings that helps fill out that res. Same thing for this ring. If you are endurance capped and res capped, you can put health there instead. But yeah, same exact stats that you're looking for. All right, as far as the shield, you want to use the highest percentile block chance shield that you can. The best one in the game is the Iron Glass shield that gives you 35% block, but you can't use that till level 74. So, use whatever has the best block chance. Early game, the Targe shield is really good too because of the Ellie res. Also, wrist it at the Carapace shield is really good for the free 75% poison res it gives you. But yeah, once you get access to Iron Glass Shield, that's the one you're going to want to use. As far as the stats, prioritize getting block chance on there and reduce damage taken on block. So anytime you block a hit, you're just going to be taking 10% less damage. Block effectiveness is also going to block or going to mitigate that damage. So you can see the mitigation right here. So in the budget planner, we're mitigating 62% of the damage for hits that we block. And then again, this is one of the only sources of all res that you can get on gear. So getting that there is really nice, but you can always replace that with any other res that you need if you don't have that on there. For our amulet, we're going to go Bone Amulet for the 40% necrotic and physical res. Try to get a high roll on this. It goes from 13 to 40. If you have a high roll, then you actually don't need any fizz or necrotic res. You can see I'm a little bit under cap because it's taking the average roll. But if you look at like good stats, I'm like way over capped there. So try to get a higher roll if you can. You can re-roll the implicits there with a rune. And then as far as these stats go, we're prioritizing getting that crit multi on there. You can see I have the chance to apply frailty on hit. Again, you just need chance of frailty on hit on either your amulet, your relic, or your gloves. Any of the three work. I just put on the amulet here for this. And then I'm going for the increased elemental damage over time. You can also put like percentile lightning damage or damage over time. Just LE damage over time is going to be much higher. And then either res or flat health will work really well for that last stat. Finally, we're going over the weapon. So the only reason why I am using a scepter right now instead of a different weapon is because before you get any uniques that can give you leech, such as Bleeding Heart, or the new sword that we'll go over once we get to the higher end build planners, is because scepters can roll a mod that says percentile of lightning damage is leech as health. Most sources of leech in this game only apply to hits. This is one of the few ones that will apply to the damage over time from Electrify because it does lightning damage. So that is the highest priority to get on your scepter. You need some kind of leech on the build. If you do have a Bleeding Heart, which is a unique amulet, you can throw that on until you get the endgame weapon that we'll be using that will give us all of our leech that we need. Other than that, the Argent Scepter is the best one because it gives you percentile damage over time. You don't care about the flat spell damage since we're all damage over time. And then we're going for crit multi, lightning pen, and chance to apply ignite. If you do have a Bleeding Heart already, then what you can do is use a regular melee weapon, like a one-handed sword, axe, or a dagger, or any of them, basically. So there's a couple swords that will give you crit multi on it, and that will give us more damage, more lightning damage over time. So that's way better than getting percentile damage over time. And on top of that, the melee weapons can get chance to ignite and chance to bleed, which is really nice. I think the best overall like rare weapon, if you don't need the leech, is actually the Chris Dagger because it goes up to 65% crit multi, which is really cool. And then you can also get that bleed and ignite chance. So just things to look out for. You can also just look for like percentile lightning damage and percentile damage over time. If you can't get the crit multi on there, just really try to get that lightning damage leech as held or some kind of leech on your build. You will notice the difference if you don't have it on there. And then that wraps up like the gear pieces. As far as the idols go, the most important idol to get here is the chance to cast Smite on hit with throwing attacks. So this is what turns us into a one-button build where you no longer have to cast Smite manually unless you need the mana. Now, it does put up a cap now where you can cap up to 10 times per 2 seconds. I have done a lot of testing with this. I know the math that if you get 2 high rolls, like the 25% or like 20% higher with 2 of them, you should be hitting the cap on there. But for some reason, even when I add 3 and even up to 4, I'm still getting way more procs than I think I'm supposed to. I don't know if that's a bug. If it gets fixed, in the next season, I will update it and change it to only 2. But for at least for right now, I'm running 3 of these guys, even if I have 25% on all 3. For the secondary stat, block effectiveness is really strong. You can also go for just flat health, or if there's a certain res you need, you can get like fire res on there, which is really nice. But don't worry as much about the secondary stat right off the gate. Just make sure you're getting the highest percentage of smite on hit chance that you can. The 2 stats or 2 idols we're going to use right here are going to give us increased damage with Smite that will apply to the ailments that Smite is applying. So it's a really big multiplier. And then same thing for these idols. You can either go for the block effectiveness, you can go for Ellie Res early game, or you can go for health. Any of those are pretty good to get on there. For these small little 1x1s, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. The main thing I would use them for is just getting a little bit of extra res if you need any extra res and a certain resistance here. So like I'm barely capped on my void res, so I went double void res. You can also get increased damage over time on here. Now, I didn't put any enchantments on these idols because I wanted these to just show really, really budget gear. If you look at the higher end build planners, there's a new system where you can enchant idols to get up to 4 mods. I will show the mods I would go for on those other planners, so we'll go over it when we get to that. Last thing to go over is the blessings here. So the blessings, the only ones I filled out are the ones that actually give you character power. These other blessings just increase drop rates. So I didn't really want to go confuse people and think they should go and farm those. I would just highly focus on farming these guys first and then grabbing these guys last. So for the first one out of the Black Sun timeline, I would go for either chance to apply Ignite that gets converted over to chance to apply Electrify, or the crit multi. If you have a really like low roll crit multi, the Ignite chance is going to be better. If you get like a 40%er, then I would actually swap over to crit multi because that's 20% more damage that you're doing. But the rolls are just a lot better by default for the chance to Ignite. So I think most of the time, unless you get a really high roll, you're going to want to go for the chance to Ignite. The health one is not terrible. Increased leech rate is not terrible. Everything else is absolutely dog doo-doo. I guess void res could be half decent, but really try to get one of these 2 guys. For the next one, we have the Ending Storm timeline. And sorry guys, I didn't go on the first one. How you get blessings is when you get to the end game, you're going to be killing these islands that are called monoliths. You're going to be going through and doing what's the equivalent of maps for Last Epoch. And as you build up the map, you're going to get a chance to fight the end boss for that monolith. When you kill them, you get to choose a blessing. It's going to give you like 4 options to choose from. And so you're not going to always get the right one the first time. Sometimes you have to kill them multiple times to get that. For the Ending Storm timeline, though, I would go for the percentile lightning damage. We don't need any extra chance to shock. We get so much free, especially lightning res. We'll never need to get lightning res on any of our gear once we get higher level. Nana's like the only other thing that's like kind of okay. We already have enough chance to shred lightning res, so we don't need that. We're not playing a ward build or a freeze build, so really, really try to get the lightning damage. Everything else is just terrible for our build. All right, for the Reign of Dragons, we do have some options here. So you can get the chance to bleed. That will convert from your Javelin hits to more Electrify. It will not convert on your Smite cast though. So it's only the 100%, whereas like if you get 100% Ignite, that's more like 200% Ignite or Electrify since it's applying to both your Smite and your Javelins. However, if you do need resistance, it is totally okay to grab Poison Res or All Res to kind of help out the early gearing stage. I think just once you get all of that covered, you're better off just grabbing the Bleed chance. For the Age of Winter, you kind of have two options here. I think the best one is going to be the block chance, block effectiveness. But if you don't get that option, you can also go for the percentile armor. Really, really good effects too, since we're stacking a bunch of armor. Everything else is hot doo-doo, so don't touch it. Grab one of these two if you can. I guess you can grab some like cold res or fizz res if you need it, but you really shouldn't. So grab one of those two. For the last one, the Spirits of Fire, I think by far the best one is flat armor. If you are really struggling trying to get like endurance, you can cap your endurance here. Or if you just haven't been able to get any frailty chance on any of your gear, you could grab frailty. Nothing else really makes sense here, but I would really try to get the flat armor if you can. And that's going to kind of wrap up the basic gearing, idols, and blessings. If you guys have any questions about like stats on there, let me know, and I will do my best to answer those. The priorities for stats will make a lot more sense in the more end game planners, where you're going to see kind of which stats I'm getting exalted. So it's easier to see kind of what the most important thing to shoot for is. But that will give you the basic idea and how to make the character function with even pretty bad gear. Next up, guys, I want to go over kind of the end game planner and what you can kind of shoot for better gear. This isn't going to be the super aspirational gear, but this is good gear to have at the end game. What I've kind of limited myself to is I only put one T6 mod on each item, so it's realistic and what you can expect at like end game when you're like 90 plus on the character. And then I will have an aspirational gear planner for those of you guys that just want to go buck wild on getting all the 4LP everything. But this is going to be kind of the end stop for most players, I feel like. So you can see each piece of gear is basically the same stats from the budget planner, except I kind of prioritize a particular stat that I feel like is the highest weighting for the character. So a lot of time that's going to be like percentile health. We're getting close to that 4K health mark now. Or like crit multi, block chance, stuff like that. So most of these pieces of gear are going to make sense on what I chose and why I chose it. The things I do want to go over are the two unique items that I've added to the build. Like I said, neither of these uniques are required for the build to function. Go back to the budget section if you need to understand what to replace them with. But the first thing I want to go over is the new unique that's being added to the game. I've already gotten so many comments in my Theorycraft video about this, so I'm going to explain it here. Weaver's Gift. So it is a Weaver's Will unique. So when it drops, it's going to have a random number of Weaver's Will. As you start getting kills with that item equipped, it's going to start randomly adding legendary fixes to the piece of gear. So it's going to be a lot easier to drop a lot of these items because of that. So if you don't get like crit multi or ignite or a stat that's useful, you're basically just going to wait till you drop another one. You're going to swap it out and then try it again. And hopefully you can get one with some good stats on there. The reason why we're using this, the increased duration, we don't use that at all. I'm not going to make my other piece of gear crappier for 5% extra duration. Just not worth it for me. It is going to give us up to 60% chance to electrify and hit. The slow one hit on that as well is pretty nice. It's going to give us the percentile damage leech as health from damage over time. So that covers all of our leech that we needed to get. And then on top of that, it's going to give us penetration for all damage over time. So it's going to go up to 33%. So really, really strong. Probably the thing I get asked about the most is somebody, is seeing some streamers that's using the Trident instead. Let me tell you why this is so much worse than running the Weaver's Gift, okay? You don't care about flat damage at all. So the melee flat damage doesn't do anything for you. Melee critical strike multiplier does not apply to the Paladin passive. It has to be generic multiplier. So you don't get more damage from the critical strike multi right there. We don't care about flat damage because we're a damage over time build. We already are going to get the conversion for the lightning damage. We need the node that's past the conversions anyways, so we're going to take it regardless. We already get 100% of bleed chance and ignite chance converted to electrify chance for Javelin. So far, every single stat on here has been a dead stat. The only thing that this has that's better than Weaver's Gift is the lightning penetration with Electrify and general lightning penetration that also applies to Electrify. So you get quite a bit more penetration. However, you already get penetration on the Javelin tree, you already get penetration in the Smite tree, you get a little bit of penetration on Weaver's Gift, you get 2 sources of penetration inside the Paladin tree. Penetration starts becoming less and less weighted as a stat that you want, the more of it that you have. So you don't really need that much. And for that being the only good stat on here, because the very last stat, the like special unique stat here, when you use Javelin, you get a Thunder stack, and that gives you extra flat damage to your smites. We don't care about flat damage again. We're a damage over time build. Do not use this weapon, man. It is a total bait. And on top of all of that, you can't use a shield, which means you can't block. And if you really want to go softcore, just dual wield 2 Weaver's Gifts, and it'll be infinitely better than using a Bident. So yeah, please don't use it. It is really, really, really bad comparison. The other weapon that you can use until you get a Weaver's Gift is you could use an I don't even know how to say this name. The sword that does some stuff. We're not using multi-strike. The extra levels of Smite are nice. And then you get some Electrify chance on melee hit, which doesn't apply to us, and then it gives you Lightning Pen. So basically, levels of Smite, Lightning Pen. But I think you're still better off just using a rare dagger with bleed chance ignite. And then getting like lightning damage and like damage over time. I think that's gonna be better than this. So I think Weaver's Will is just by far in every single scenario better, unless you are playing a different build with like multi-strike. So that's my 2 cents. Bit of a rant. I've been asked this like 30 times in comments already. That is why this is just infinitely better than all of the other ones. Next unique, Code of the Array Sentinel, also a Weaver's unique. It is basically your go-to for almost every Sentinel build. The reason why we're going to use it is because it gives us +1 level to all of our skills, 30% increased armor, and an additional 20 to 30% of armor mitigation applies to damage over time. So at this point, we're getting to like over half of our armor is flying to damage over time, which is going to just make us a giga tank. Again, just go for the same stats that we're going for on the other rare relics, crit multi, levels of smite, levels of symbols. Any of that is really, really good here. All right, the next change that I want to go over is the enchanted idols. So you basically grab a regular idol, and when you get access to a cemetery in the end game, inside at the very end, after you kill the boss, you can enchant your idol with 1 random stat, and then it puts some Weaver's Will on your idol. So as you get kills, it'll either increase that 1 stat that you've added or add another stat. So the big stat we want to go for on our 2x2 idols is the chance to apply Electrify on hit, and it gives us a little pen. The secondary stat that you want to go for after that one is increase Electrify duration, and it gives you a little bit more health leech, but it's pretty minute. So those are the 2 that you want to go for on these guys. The enchants are different depending on the type of idol that you're going for. For the 1x3s, you're going to be looking for the percentile armor and armor mitigation, and then the increased damage over time and the percentile endurance. The enchants for these guys are pretty bad, so those are kind of just the best ones that make the most sense for the build. As far as the 1x1s, there are a chance when you're in the cemeteries and the tombs to drop special small Weaver idols. They roll very similar, but they just have like higher rolls. So I can get like more void res and more damage over time. And you also get the 1% less damage over time taken with that stat. So just slightly better. Not really a big deal if you don't have these. It's just, you know, if they drop with good stats, slot them in. And then that kind of goes over all the changes for the gearing. And then we can go over some very small changes with the passives and the skills here next. All right, guys, next up, I want to go over the skill changes for the endgame planner. For the most part, there's like no changes. I just want to show you where to put extra points if you happen to get them from like the Code of the Erased, or you get like levels to smite and stuff like that. So as far as the Javelin goes, your priority is to finish capping out Spirit of the Thigh. If you do happen to somehow get extra points, like you have levels to Javelin or something random, you're just going to put them into Burning Strain for the extra Electrify chance. As far as the Smite levels go, you're going to be putting in any extra points into Charged Hands. If you happen to have like a T7 levels to Smite, the extra points will go over here into Holy Fire for the Ignite chance that gets converted. For Holy Aura, we're just going to put the extra point over into Firestorm, a little bit of extra fire damage, nothing too crazy there. If you do happen to get a couple extra points there, you can put it into Mighty Shield for block effectiveness, where it's too far away to really grab Expedite at this point, unless you want to drop some of the shelter from the Storm nodes. In which case, you could put the 4 travel points here and grab the 3 points into Expedite for throwing attack speed. For Symbol of Hope, any additional points will go into Sign of the Guardian. If you end up with a lot more points than that, then you're just going to put them over into Empowering Symbols for the extra damage. And then Shield Throw, I apologize, I thought I actually had changed this, it must not have saved. So once I get past the campaign and go through kind of the base monoliths, and I'm done kind of like speed farming, and I want to make sure I'm playing it a little bit more safe, as monsters start getting harder, I'm actually going to re-spec over to Volatile Reversal as my movement skill. So Volatile Reversal is going to give us a couple other utilities other than an entire skill basically just being for mana efficiency. So Volatile Reversal has been completely reworked, and how it functions now is it is a teleport ability. So you're going to click it, it's going to teleport you forward just the same way like Mage Teleport works. The difference is you're going to have the option over the next couple seconds, 3 seconds after you teleport, that you could click it again if you want to, and it'll bring you back to your original location. Now, we're basically never going to want to do that unless you're trying to dodge something you accidentally teleported into, but we'll show you how to put the points in live. So I'm going to start with the first 4 points into Swift Echoes for increased cooldown recovery, keep me moving nice and fast. Next, I'm going to be putting 2 points into Temporal Dilation. What this is going to do is it's going to make it so the duration in which you can jump backwards in time is extended by 2 seconds. So it makes it 5 seconds. I know that's going to sound weird since the cooldown doesn't start going into effect until that goes away, but it's going to make a lot more sense here in just a second. You're going to put 1 point into Catching Up. What this does is if you do decide to jump backwards in time, it just gives you haste. It's only going to be haste for 1 second. You're basically never going to want to jump backwards in time. Next up, we have Warp Time. So this is where the jump back comes into play. So you gain the Frenzy buff while you are able to jump backwards in time. So you teleport forward, it now allows you to jump backwards in time, but if you don't, it's just going to give you a permanent frenzy. So you should have high enough cooldown with the first notes that we took that you basically just have a permanent frenzy buff, which increases your throwing attack speed. Next, we'll grab the 4 points into Phase Reality. So while you're able to jump backwards in time, percentage of your armor is applying to damage over time. Just crazy damage over time mitigation. There's not a whole lot else here on the tree that applies. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a travel point here into Void Bolt. I'm going to go over Hubble's function in a second. We're going to take 2 more points into Food for the Worms for the Void Bolt Time Watch Chance. Again, just travel points. And then the 4 points into Time Rifts. So basically how Time Rift works is enemies that are hit by Volatile Reversal's Void Bolts. So right here, so whenever you teleport, it's going to shoot out 3 projectiles. So anything hit by those projectiles is going to take increased damage over time by you. So it's going to take 15% more damage over time from you for 12 seconds. So for like bosses, you should be able to have 100% uptime on this, just giving you a little bit of extra on the single target. For the last 2 points, everything else is dog shit. You're just going to take the 2 points into Dissipation for the 100% slow chance to anything you do hit when you teleport into them. And then that will wrap up all of the skill changes going into the higher budget gear. All right, guys, next up, I just want to go over the very small amount of passive changes that we're going to do as you get better gear on your character. So there's not a whole lot here, but there is a couple changes to kind of min-max the setup. So once you've got your mana sustain fixed, we are going to take the 5 points out of Time and Faith, and we're going to put 1 of those points into Valiant Charge, so that way we get the extra cooldown recovery for our movement skill, especially after switching to Volatile Reversal, since it has a longer cooldown. We're going to throw some points into Fearless for the extra health, and then we are actually going to take out the points out of Juggernaut once you have your Fire and Void Res covered with the rest of your passives and gear, as the Strength wasn't really doing a whole lot, and we don't really need that much res. And you're going to put the 5 points into Relentless. Now, 25% increased damage is fine. It's not that great. 250% stun avoidance is good. But the main reason why we're taking this is the 5-point bonus, where you are immune to stuns for a longer duration after being stunned. So you have kind of a safe proc after you've been stunned, where you can't immediately get re-stunned. So this is doubling that amount of duration. Stuns get people killed. We don't want to die. We're playing hardcore. So I'm going to take those extra points there. The additional changes there that I made is I did grab 2 additional points into Steel Aegis for the extra block effectiveness, since it gives you quite a bit of block effectiveness per point. And then we dropped 3 total points from our Paladin tree. Most of those points are being taken out of Defiance. Once you get all of your res covered with the rest of your blessings and passives, you really don't need the other stats that we get from this. So we're going to take 5 points out there. We're going to put 2 of those points into Honor for the additional block effectiveness. And then those extra 3 points went over to the Forge Guard tree for the extra block. Everything else is basically looking the exact same, so you don't really need to change a whole lot. They're just very minor details for min-maxing that I feel like are going to be more beneficial to us in the end game. And then that kind of goes over all of the changes for the higher budget setup. Alrighty, guys. Next up, I want to go over the Weaver tree and kind of what I'm planning on setting up for my starter tree. So any of the planners here outside of the early leveling planner, there's going to be a button that says Weaver tree. You're just going to click on that. It's going to open up this guy. If you don't know what the Weaver tree is, it's a new endgame system that allows you to customize how your endgame is going to function. You're going to start getting objectives and these little slots that you can put inside of your echoes. And then when you complete them, it's going to give you a passive point for this tree. So it's going to have a slider bar here at the bottom to kind of let you see what I'm choosing first here. So we're just going to go through the nodes one at a time and tell you why I'm choosing what I'm choosing. So first point is going to be into Exalted Challenger. Your echoes have a high chance to spawn a champion. If you guys don't know what a champion is, they are a like mini boss type mob that can start spawning, I believe, from like level 9 zones and onward. So you'll probably have ran into a couple of them in the campaign. And then when you kill them, they'll drop a special item that has like a sealed affix that is typically a skill-related sealed affix. There isn't really any of those that are good for our build, but it's extra monsters. They should get pretty good XP since they're like a mini boss, and they give us a chance to drop exalted items. But we're going to use that to get over here. We're going to grab a travel point to Exalted Finds. We get an extra exalted item every time we open a lost cache. Sure, that works. But we're going towards the best node in the whole tree, Eclipse Battleground. Arena echoes no longer spawn on your echo web. Arenas take forever to do. Nobody likes doing them. They don't give great rewards. And typically your goal when you first get into endgame is to speed to empowered monos as fast as possible. This is going to help us do that. Next up, we're going to be taking 2 points in the Tome of Insight. My main goal from my Weaver tree here is to gain as much experience as fast as possible and to be able to help target farm gear. So one of the ways I'm going to do that is by trying to give myself the most opportunities to get experience tomes. So you have a chance that whenever you complete an echo, that just also gives you experience tomes on there. So really, really strong. Next up, we're going to grab our first imprint slot. So this is the other thing I'm going to be targeting across the entire web. What this does is they all do a slightly different type of item and a different proc chance. But basically, you're going to, for this slot, you're going to place a weapon or a jewelry item to imprint it in this slot. And then you have a small chance that when you kill an enemy in your regular echo, that it'll drop a pile of similar items. So if I want to drop more rings with minus throwing mana cost, I can put my ring in here. It's going to snapshot like a picture of it. It's not going to keep your ring. You can still wear your ring. And then it will give me a chance to drop items that have the same like base type and sometimes the same modifiers on there. You can also put unique items in here. So if we want to put our unique sword that we want to use in here, it'll snapshot a picture of it. It will give us an increased chance of dropping that sword's base type. So it won't only drop the unique item, but it will still give you an increased odds of dropping that unique item. All right, next up, we are going to take 1 point, travel point into Gift of Allegiance. I don't really care about the extra favor cache spawn, but I do want to get the Sealed Riches. So this one, we place an armor or a weapon item to imprint, and then we have a chance to drop a pile of similar items anytime you open up the lost cache. So it's not the favorite cache. I don't know why they have this note right before it, but anytime you open up a lost cache, you just have a chance to drop a bunch of these items. All right, next up, we're going to take the 1.2 8 Eyes in the Dark. So same reason why we're taking away Arena Echoes, we're going to take away, this is basically going to give you a chance to spawn Spiderling packs, which is extra XP, but the big part is that beacons will never appear in your echoes. Beacons are kind of a wasted echo reward. You get to see what's around you, sure, that's fine, but they gave terrible rewards and they took forever to do because you just had to kill waves of monsters. Don't want to deal with it. Next up, we're going to take Beacon of the Ascended. This does nothing. It gives your beacons will be converted into a super beacon. It gives you even farther distance to view. But because we disabled a beacon, it does nothing. This next point is just a travel point. Loot lizards in your echo have a chance to drop a pile of exalted items. So all loot lizards are kind of good now, which is good. And then these next couple of points here are all going to have the same kind of idea behind them. So keyless exchange, echoes you discover in your echo web will never have arena key as a reward. Nobody ever uses the arena keys. And basically it's just going to change that arena key into a different random reward instead. So our goal with these next couple of nodes is to take away as many of the reward auctions that could appear on your echoes, so that way they get replaced, hopefully, with tomes of experience, so we get more XP. So for our next node, we're going to get rid of the gold rewards. You don't really use that much gold unless you're doing trade, which, you could choose to not take these, but I feel like most of your gold's coming from killing monsters anyways. Then you're going to take away the glyph rewards and the rune rewards. So just taking as many of those rewards out of the pool, so you're left with mostly XP tomes. Okay, next up, I'm going to grab the 3 points into Grand Catacombs. This is going to make it so that Tombs of the Erased are 30% more common in my echoes. If you don't know what a tomb is, it's the new side zones that spawn inside of echoes that give you a bunch of loot. They give you amber, which you're going to be able to use to spend on crafting your idols. And they also can drop you some of the items that will allow you to get bonus points for your beaver tree. So getting a bunch of those is really nice. Next, we'll take the 4 points into Enthralling Bounty for the double reward chance. So we have a 20% chance, basically, when we get XP tomes, to get double the amount of XP tomes. So really strong. We'll take one travel point here, so rare enemies inside your tombs and cemeteries have additional chances to drop Woven Echoes. Woven Echoes are the new consumable that you can put inside your echoes to give you like special zones. 1 point here, you have a chance for champions in your regular echoes to drop a pile of Woven Echoes as well. And then we'll try to get over to Warlord's Riches. So another imprint slot. So place an item in this slot to make champions sometimes drop a pile of those items of the same type. And then they always have a sealed champion affix imprinted on them. So you can put any type of item into this slot, and that will give you that chance of getting more of those types of items. Okay, next up, we're going to take the additional point to Exalted Challenger. Since we're right next to a bunch of nodes, increase the spawn rate of champions. That's more XP for us and more exalted items. And then we'll take the 3 points into Heroic Gauntlet for the 36% increased chance for champions to spawn. So we're going to get just a ton of champions in all of our echoes, giving us a lot more rewards. Next up, we'll take 1 traveling point into Hoarding Reptiles, so just extra loot lizard spawns, sure. But then that'll give us access to Loomed Riches. Place a Woven Echo in here to imprint this slot for a chance to spawn on your Echo web. So eventually we're going to need the Uberoth Woven Echo. So you could place that in here to get more Uberoth chances, which will be really good for the race. Next, we'll take 1 point to Gatekeeper's Bounty. Rare enemies have an additional chance to drop a dungeon key and a dungeon key charm. If I'm really unlucky early game, I haven't gotten a single key to drop yet, which you need if you're trying to skip the campaign and get access to like Circle of Fortune. I may try to rush down here and grab this first, but I have a feeling now that we can use any dungeon key to skip that I should be okay. Then we'll grab the 2 points of the Warden's Echo. So your echoes have a chance to spawn a rare enemy alongside a pack from a specific dungeon that drops that dungeon's respective key and has a chance to drop that respective dungeon's boss unique items. I want to do as little amount of dungeons as possible. I want to be just blasting as quickly as I can. So getting the chance to drop some of those dungeon bosses uniques is actually insane. So really, really good notes. Plus, it's just extra monsters in your echoes, which means more XP. Next, we'll take the twin champions. So champions have a chance to have 2 of them. But most importantly, you want to get over to the woven riches. So place a woven echo to imprint it in the slot for a chance to have chance to spawn on your echo web when a new echo is generated. So it just randomly gives you like that echo available there. Then we'll take the 1 point to regal foes. Bosses and champions in your echoes drop additional pile of gold and have an additional chance to drop a unique item. This also gives us access to echoing riches. So place an armor or jewelry item to imprint it in the slot to have a chance to drop a pile of similar items as an extra reward when you receive an echo reward. So at the end of every echo, you just have a chance to get a pile of whatever is you slotted in here. Now, because my weapon is going to be a Weaver's Will weapon, and anytime you're using a Weaver's item, you need a whole bunch of them to try to hopefully get one with really good rolls that roll on it, because all of the slammed legendary mods are random. I am going to be taking the 3 points into Woven Treasures, so rare enemies in your echoes have a chance to drop a Weaver's Will item, and then the 3 points into Prime Weaver, or Weaver's Will value and unique items found in your echoes have a chance to be rolled twice, keeping the higher roll. So it's going to roll it 2 times. If one of them was 10 Weaver's Will and one of them was 15 Weaver's Will, it's going to choose the 15. So you just have a higher chance of getting better Weaver Will items, basically. All right, for the last couple points here, we're just going to be filling out some of the additional points. So we're going to be grabbing 3 points into Burial Grounds. This is basically just going to give us extra pack size in tombs and cemeteries, just more XP when we're going through there. So nothing too crazy. And then our last 3 points I'm going to be doing in Memories of Fortune. So you have an increased drop rate of Memory Amber in your echoes. Memory Amber is the new currency that is for the Weaver Tree and for rolling your idols. So I feel like I'm going to be using a lot of that, just trying to get my perfect idols good to go. So I just want to be able to get increased amount chances for that. So this is mainly just to get massive amounts of experience right out the get-go and get more targeted farming for the items that I'm looking for. It might be something that I change late game once I'm level 100 and I've killed Uberoth and gotten all that taken care of, but haven't decided what I want to go outside of that. This is kind of just going to be the base tree that I'm going for. Okay, guys, next thing I want to go over is how to put my loot filters into your game. So in the video description, there is going to be a link that says loot filter. It will not show a link until after the patch has gone live. Once the patch has gone live, literally the minute it goes live, I'm going to update it. So just refresh the YouTube video, go into the video description, click on the link. That way it has all the new items coming into the patch and we're not using an old filter. What it's going to look like is something like this. It is going to be a mess of information. Don't worry about what it says there. All you need to do is click on the page, click Control A. That is going to highlight all of the text inside of the loot filter. And then you can either click Control C or right click and copy to copy all of that text. Then what you're going to do is you're going to come into the game. You're going to click Shift F as in Frank. That is going to pull up in your loot filter page. You're going to click the little plus sign. Now, do not click Create New Filter. All you're going to do is click Paste Clipboard Contents. That is going to go ahead and automatically import filter. You can name it whatever you like. Click Confirm. And boom, the loot filter will be in the game for you. I will have a leveling filter. If I can fit all of the rules into one filter, it'll just be one filter. Otherwise, there might be a leveling filter and then an endgame filter, but we'll just have to see on what that turns out to be here over the next day. And then you're good to go. You can go ahead and start going through the campaign. It's going to start auto-highlighting everything that's important to you or that could possibly be an upgrade, and just look out for that. Typically, anything that's got a mod that is important that you need to get fixes from, I highlight red. If it shows up as just like yellow or blue, it means possibly an upgrade for an item. It'll show all the unique and set items and all exalted items while leveling. And then it will show off idols that at least have one good stat on there. The blue colored mods are just going to be from killing the exiled mages, and then it will just naturally level up with you. So if a level or old level pair of boots is really low level and you start getting too much higher than it, they'll just naturally stop showing those low level pair of boots, and that way you're only seeing the best base items for your character's level. So I put lots of work into these, so I hope you guys appreciate the loot filters. Let me know if you have any questions about working them. Okay, guys, we're getting towards the end of the video. I just wanted to do a quick FAQ for a lot of my most commonly asked questions about the character that I got with the theory crafting video. In case you missed some of that information through the very lengthy video that I have here for you, I can kind of go over just like the most important things that I've been getting asked. So one of the big things is, how do you sustain mana? Because the Javelin skill costs a crap ton of mana. It's proccing smites. Smites cost a bunch of mana. You don't see a lot of mana regen on my gear. How is that sustained? So a couple of things. I put a little bit of mana regen on my belt. That's not even mandatory though. The big thing is making sure on both rings that you have minus mana cost for throwing skills. It only needs to be a tier 1. It can be sealed off on the ring. Otherwise, it can be a main stat on there while you're leveling. That's fine too. That's going to give you a -6 mana cost for your Javelin. The next thing is you're going to get -9 mana cost for your Javelin with inside the skill tree. And then early game, before you can get access to those things, you're going to be taking the 5 points into Time and Faith. So whenever you directly cast Smite, it's going to give you mana back. So late game, it's going to be basically a one-button build where you're just spamming Javelin. During the early game, you're going to spam Javelin. When you run out of mana, you're going to directly cast Smite. It's going to give you your mana back. On top of that, you get a little bit of extra mana regen from Covenant Dominion. You get 25% increased mana regen while you're affected by Holy Aura. So between all of that, when I did my testing, I had T7 attack speed on both my rings and my gloves, so crazy mana consumption, and I could sit there and not move at all and just attack a boss for like 20 to 25 seconds, which is a really long time. You should be moving around whenever you're in the game anyways, which means you're not going to be attacking quite so fast, and it's going to be a long time before everyone's got triple T7 attack speed. And then that was without mana regen on my belt. When I had the mana regen on there, it put me up to like 30 to 35 seconds on average of just straight spam casting. So mana is not really going to be a problem as long as you've done those things on your gear. Second question I get asked all the time: why Weaver's Gift over some of the other Electrify items? So we can go into here really quick. One of them is the Aurelis sword. We're not using multi-strike, so this doesn't do anything. Multi-strike levels don't do anything. Flat damage doesn't apply to damage over time. So the only thing this sword gives us is the plus levels, the Smite, and the lightning penetration with Electrify, which we already get lightning pen here, even though it's a little bit less. And we don't use melee hits, so we're not using that application. Where Weaver's Gift gives us Electrify hit, it gives us our leech for the build, and it gives us pen. The other comparison is this guy right here, Bident. Bident, this is a terrible option. Unless you're playing some weird hybrid build, I do not think that this is the play at all. The melee crit multiplier does not get applied to your more multiplier damage over time. It has to be generic crit multi. You don't care about the flat damage. 100% of your Javelin converted to lightning is already happening in the Javelin tree. You have to take those nodes regardless. Same thing with the 100% of bleed converted to ignite, or bleed and ignite converted to electrify. We already have that. So half of this weapon is already just dead stats. The only thing that this weapon has on the Weaver's Gift is it gives you lightning pen with electrify and lightning penetration. So you get a lot more penetration than what you would with Weaver's Gift. However, you already get a crap ton of pen on the Weaver's Gift item, on the Javelin tree, on the Smite tree, on the Paladin tree. You have already plenty of penetration. You don't need the extra here. And then the actual unique modifier just gives you more flat damage for Smite. So again, don't care about it. I think this is just a brain dead option. If I'm being honest, don't use it. Use a Weaver's Gift. Use a shield. Now you have way better survivability. Your weapon makes a lot more sense. And worst case scenario, you want to go full DPS, just dual wield 2 Weaver's Gifts, and it'll still be better because it'll get way more Electrify chance and way more leech. So yeah, I don't know. Kind of been debate. I don't think it's worth it. I think this is by far superior. I think even more superior than both those other uniques is just using a rare crit dagger that gives you a bunch of crit multi, and then putting bleed chance, ignite chance, crit multi, and lightning damage on there. And I think you have a better weapon just doing that than using a unique item. But anyways, that was my rant. Those are probably the 2 most commonly asked questions, guys. Tons of build planners are going to be in the description. Loot filter will be there as soon as the patch goes live. And then if you guys have any other questions, just let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to help you guys out. I try to get to all the comments if I can. Feel free to repost if I didn't get to your comment. And then yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys on the 17th. I will be league starting this character. It's gonna be a really good time. I'm gonna be playing solo hardcore for the race. Even though I can't win anything off the race, I'm still gonna do it for fun. It's gonna be a good time, guys. And I hope to see you guys there. If you guys haven't already subbed to the video, I would go ahead and sub to the channel. I do lots of really in-depth build guides like this, if that's your kind of thing, that I think you'll like a lot of the content I do. And if you guys haven't checked me out on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/pinchinglove. Alrighty, guys, I'll catch you guys all later. See ya.